All right. I'm recording. So,
Okay.
Brennan, you starting this?
No, go ahead.
All right. Let me think about what I'm going to say here.
I mean, you can record the intro separately.
Cool. Yeah, we can do that. All right. So I will get started. All right. Here we go. Hello and welcome to the Triple Block podcast brought to you by Off the Block blog. My name is Mike Fink. I am the former head coach at Alderson Broaddus University. Coached for Pace Bootlegger as well, and I'm a SUNY New Paltz alumni. I am joined by Brendan Ledwith and Eric Rothbard. Brendan, why don't you tell us a little something about yourself?
I am currently the head coach at Trine University, and then was at USA Volleyball working in boys and men's development previous to this, starting college programs and club teams all around the country.
All right, Eric, now it's your turn.
I was the coach over at Vassar men's team for the past 3 years. As of this year, I'm not coaching there anymore, as with a move with my main job of teaching. I also led the LaGrange Middle School girls volleyball team to a record of 6-4 last year. Those are my credentials.
That's definite talent.
All coaching. So our general idea here for this show is to talk about men's Division III volleyball, especially in Northeast, but as well as Chicago. It's a big, popular sport, so we want to give it the coverage that it deserves. We've all experienced the sport in many levels, but we're very familiar with Division III. In the preseason here, our goal is to go through each conference. We'll have one episode a week, and in that time, we'll go through one conference. We'll talk about each team individually, going through them as just kind of their reverse order from their standings of last year. Talk about key additions, key losses, what we think is going to happen going forward, maybe even coaching changes, just kind of talk about the teams. This week, we are starting with the UVC.
So, last year in the UVC, your reverse order of finish has, who is it, Bard?
Bard.
Okay, I can edit this out. Last year's order of finish has Bard, St. John Fisher, Sage, MIT, Nazareth, NYU, Elmira, New Paltz, Vassar, and the UVC champion Stevens. So we're going to start with our conversation about Bard. Mike, you want to get us started?
Yeah. So last year, Bard, within the conference, 0-9. They've lost two of their biggest players, Zawoski and Briggs, both with their starting outsides from last year. But I do like a lot of things that are going on with them. I enjoy their coach. Eric's going to help me out with the name. Eric, what's his name?
Adam Ninchinovich.
Yeah. But his background, really strong volleyball background, lots of professional experience. Definitely knows what he's talking about. So I'm guessing he's going to coach the guys up really well that are coming in. Might be a year away from getting a team into the playoffs, but definitely a rising situation at Bard College. Eric, any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think Adam's trying to get used to coaching the D3 level, getting used to all the odds and ends about coaching for NCAA and all that stuff. So, I think as he gets experience, the team will also gain experience with him head coaching them.
Great.
Something interesting that you see on their roster that's different than everybody else is they have a number of international kids, and being an international coach, I'm sure might be able to pull some things in that are from outside the U.S., which would give that team a very different feel and look than most teams you're going to face.
Yep.
Right. That's going to be a big tool for them. I mean, the proximity of where they are in New York City, it's going to help them sell some international recruits and give guys from overseas an experience that they want in a college. So I could definitely see that being something that's going to happen more frequently in the future. It could be something to watch out for the rest of the UVC, is some of these big international guys coming over and playing a Bard.
All right. Well, that's it for Bard, but we're going to go next with our newcomer to the conference, St. John Fisher, up in Rochester, New York. Eric, you wanna start with about St. John Fisher?
Yeah, they were fairly solid last year. I think if they weren't in such a tough conference, they could have definitely made more of a run at bids in other conferences. Obviously, being UBC being probably the strongest conference, they have all the makings to be definitely contending this year. I can't see them staying as second to last at the end of this year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I've actually worked for St. John Fisher in the past. I know the university fairly well. They're 1-8 in conference last year, but look at their overall record. They were 13-16. They were almost 500 in their first year as a program. That's very impressive. The university as a whole has a really strong major, especially in pre-med, anything health science related or sciences. That's going to really help them bring in recruits from all over the place. And I know, and the coaches there do a really great job. I know they're going to keep working to bring in as many players as they possibly can. Last year they had De La Cruz was their big outside hitter, and he graduated. And he had a really good season considering it was his first time playing a lot of volleyball in a while, a senior in college. But he did a really good job. He's gone now though, but they have two big freshmen, Josh Bigford, who's a 6'6" outside coming in, plays a lot of beach on the AVP up and coming players list, and Andres Ramirez, an outside from Florida. So they have two big guys coming in right now. They're going to look to kind of add to what they already have there, on top of a really strong libero in David Cirqua, and has some smart setting as well. So I think I would look out for St. John Fisher to jump up this list quite a bit this year.
That sounds great, and a good outlook for Fisher. Just finishing above them last year was Sage, which is an interesting situation now that they have a new head coach. So, Mike, you want to talk a little bit about how Sage will probably fare this year?
Yeah, Sage College, again, another situation where it's a good thing they have volleyball. There's a lot of potential in that university to really put together a strong team. Right now, last year they were turning Sanders in the middle, who hit 464 on the season, that's very efficient. Pretty much giving the ball and getting a kill almost half the time. That's going to be pretty hard to stop in general. I'm not totally sure on who they're bringing in, but I think with just the people returning, they didn't really lose a ton of talent. So I would look for them to improve their overall record a little bit. I mean, they were 3-6 in the conference last year. I would expect they get at least 3 wins this year, maybe get another one out of it. Eric, you got anything?
No, that all sounds good. I agree. I think there's a lot to see with the new coach and see how things are run from now on. They had someone there for quite a long time, so going to take a little getting used to having a new person over there.
Yeah, I mean, having that new coach could definitely be a blessing for them, and definitely hope to see an improved record and an improved finish for them. Finishing just under 500 last year was MIT. Eric, you want to talk a little bit about MIT and kind of what they're going through for the next year?
Yeah, that's another team that they got a lot of young guys that can definitely make a difference for the UBC. That I'm very high on their libero was really solid. All the times I saw him last year was very impressive. They're just overall, I think they have a lot more players this year from what I hear. All those freshmen coming in who might be playing outside. And, I think if they can figure out who's going to play and who's going to take that spot, I think they'll definitely be contending.
Yeah, I got to talk myself a little bit with Coach Elwell at MIT. And he brought up they've really added some fill some holes in the offseason. They really focused on filling some competition at the outside spot. They brought in 5 new outside hitters this year. That's going to not just lead to good talent, but it's going to lead to some really strong competition in practice, which I think is a really underrated thing as far as developing players go, and who actually plays on the court, is having that constant battle in practice every single day. If you got 5 guys in the same class, the same position, it's really going to bring the best out of everybody in that gym, which would really help them out a lot. And they have a similar setup at the middle hitter. They have 4 returning middle hitters, and it's going to just kind of keep everybody going at each other all the time. It seems that's what Coach Elwell wants, is just a big battle in that gym all the time. And throwing all that on top of Thomas Nelson as returning libero, I think it looks like a pretty good season. I'd say definitely contending for a playoff spot for MIT.
It doesn't hurt having a 6'9" guy in the middle there either.
No, height is always good.
Yeah, so hopefully MIT can sneak their way into the tournament this year for the UBC, finishing just 1 place out last year. The next team up, Nazareth, actually finished in that 6th spot and got in over them. So, Mike, this is your hometown. This is your stomping grounds. What do you think about Naz?
I mean, Naz is always going to be a good team. There's never going to be a year where Naz, no matter what they lose, they're going to be a bad team. I'd say Naz is kind of in the same spot as last year, where they're right there fighting for a playoff spot, or maybe even getting up into the 4 seed, somewhere in that range. They lost Bicker and Kemp, so it's a big outside and a big in their stud setter that have graduated, but they still have Crosby in the middle, and they always recruit well. So I'm sure they'll find someone. I'm sure they'll find some players to step in and fill some roles along the way, as well as figuring out the right lineups, which they're always known for doing, trying out different lineups. They may lose a couple games early on, but until they figure out exactly what works best, but they always figure out what's the best team that can possibly be on the court. That's one thing that Naz always does extremely well. Who are the best 6 or 7, whatever it is, they're going to be on the court at any given point. They're going to figure that out. They're going to maximize it.
So, Eric, do you think that holds true after playing them for a few years?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, they had the libero that came over from Juniata. He started, I think it was 2 years ago that he came over as libero, and then by midway through, he was their outside hitter. So I think, they just look for whoever's going to work best for that spot and just go with it, no matter what they're supposed to be playing.
All right. Any other thoughts on Naz, Eric?
No, I agree. I think with Fink really, he knows his Rochester. So, I'm never going to go against Fink and his Rochester ways.
Fair enough. Well, we're going back down to the other side of the state, and the team that finished just above 500 in conference last year, NYU, always perennially a good team, and just getting inside that 5th spot in conference last year. So Eric, you obviously are pretty close to them and play them a lot. So what do you think?
Yeah, we usually wind up playing them 2 or 3 times a year. So they didn't lose that much. I mean, they lost the senior guy who would come in and serve the ball, jump serve really hard. I think they have a lot of new guys coming in as freshmen, and they didn't lose that much. They still have Lindley. They still have Neal. They still have Alex Lee. I think they have to be the front runners for UBC, just based on all the guys they have coming back, and they're only going to get more and more experience.
Yeah,
NYU's, again, it's such a big name school. They're not going to have a ton of trouble generating interest from all over the country and the world, really, in the university. So they're going to bring in always some big kids. So, like I said, they have Ferraro in the middle hitting over 400 for the season, and they have Alex Lee that are putting out almost 4 assists per set. They're in a really, really good spot. And again, they're going to keep competing. They're going to be things there. I think they're right up there in that top tier of team that if the ball bounces the right way, they could definitely be a contender to win this conference. And even the national championship. I think as far as we kind of work our way up this conference, we're getting into that category of teams that have a chance to really go for a national championship run.
Now that's an interesting point, because their next team, has always been sort of, historically been an upper tier team in the UVC, but may not have broken through consistently to make the NCAA tournament. And that's Elmira. So Eric, what are your thoughts on Elmira being able to kind of break through all that?
Yeah, they definitely have the talent to do that. When we played against them last year, we went 5 with Elmira. They had some good wins last year. They got into the rankings, so there's no reason why they shouldn't contend just as well as last year.
Right. Elmira, again, another team, kind of repeating ourselves in this conference a lot. We say teams are well coached, are going to figure things out, but it's the case for most of these teams. Elmira, again, Dan Moran is a good coach. He's going to be able to figure things out. He knows many of the other coaches really well because he played for Nazareth, worked with Steve England that is at St. John Fisher. So he's going to know a lot of these guys, know a lot of strategies, know what they're going to try and do. And they still have McDonough, they still have Buffum, they have some big guys that are going to be able to hit the ball. And again, like I said, we're in that tier now where there's no reason they can't make a run either for the whole thing. Again, volleyball's kind of one of those sports. I don't think anyone this year is really going to dominate and run away. So if you're in the right place at the right time, playing the right way, they can definitely do it. But Elmira's definitely there. They won 20 matches last year. That's a pretty big number. Getting 20 wins in one season, and still finishing in 4th in your conference. That's an impressive season. So I'm looking for again Elmira to kind of hold strong. I'm not sure if they're going to jump anyone in the conference as far as standings go, but again, it wouldn't shock me if they moved up or pulled some upsets in the playoffs.
Yeah, that would be, an even more evidence to how strong and deep the UVC is year in and year out. Now, this next team I know is near and dear to both of your hearts, so I'm going to let you fight over who gets to talk about them first. But New Paltz, had some injuries last year, had some other things going on, still managed to finish 19-8, beat the EIVA champions at Springfield in a tournament. So they had some really great things going on last year, but just couldn't quite get over the hump of the top 2. But coming back this year, what do we think?
Yeah, they haven't. They lost Bonilla and Dencourt, but they still have a lot of young guys. They have their transfer, who's a senior with Schneider. They still have O'Malley in the middle, and you got that constant Long Island pipeline that they always seem to be getting over the last 6, probably close to 6 or 8 years now, where they're just constantly getting those Long Island guys to get up there. So they lost Bonilla, which is definitely tough, and Nick, but they still got plenty of guys there with Matt Setting and a decent libero and Nolan to help them out.
Yeah, the silver lining to having a player like Bonilla get hurt and miss so many matches in his senior season, the upside of that is you really got a chance to develop some of these guys like Nick Smith being there and just getting all those extra reps that he wouldn't have gotten last year if Bonilla was on. But they had to lean on him a little. Not that he wasn't playing last year, but he got a lot of extra pressure put onto him last year to help him improve. So I would look at him to be one of the top players in the conference this year. And again, they have Nick O'Malley ready to step up and fill some of the voids in the middle. There's going to be a ton of bodies there, and like Eric and I, both alumni of New Paltz, we know that what's going to go on in that gym. There's going to be a lot of competition. So they're really going to, like we talked about before, was with MIT. I think it's going to be a similar situation where you got a lot of guys and a lot of bodies battling for playing time. Those battles get intense and they make you better. And I think that's going to really help New Paltz in the long run. It's just kind of all the guys I have there fighting for playing time and fighting for improvement, even in practice. And again, it's kind of like a broken record, but again, really well coached. So I'm sure they'll figure out the right situation to get things in. I know Radu isn't afraid to move some guys around and make some changes to do what's best for the team. So they're going to figure out again what's best. And I think just talent wise and physicality wise, they have one of the teams that it's kind of hard to argue that is definitely in that top 3 as far as just the physical athletes that they have. So if they can put it all together and just kind of click as a team, I think they're in a really good spot.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too. Before you done that, Radu is not afraid to throw people in. So all these guys, even if they got a little bit, they all got experience playing even against the top teams, no matter who you look at on that roster. Everyone got in. There were times when we played them and we probably saw 6 different middles at one, in one match. So it's like they used to throw everyone in, and they all got experience doing that. Whether they're losing the match or winning the match, these guys got experience.
Mm-hmm. And there's a few teams that go in there, but as a game planning note, it's much tougher if you're New Paltz and you're playing 8 possible different lineups. You're playing different outsides, different hitters. It's really hard for other coaches to get tendencies down, at least as consistently as you can for other teams. If you're a team that's playing with one lineup, you might be a little more talented, but if you have one lineup all year, it's going to make it much easier to game plan for because it's just more film, more data. Whereas if you're if you have the luxury of you're someone like New Paltz or do things like Nazareth does, or like MIT has all these freshmen fighting for spots, you're probably going to play a lot of people. It's going to be much harder to game plan. You can't really, you can't forget about that when it comes to like predicting who's going to win and when upsets are going to happen. If you show up with a new lineup at the right time, you might get a win that you may not talent wise necessarily deserve, but you're going to be able to pull it off because coaches have done some smart things throughout the year.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. And the next team up last year did some creative things with their lineup, and the biggest thing is that this next team up is second in the conference, but NCAA national semifinal, got to host the first round, pulled a what some might call an upset in their first game. And just did some great things. So, right at the end of the year, they had a good run. And, I know Eric, you were there coaching. So Mike, you want to start us off and talk a little bit about Vassar and how we think they're going to end up this year?
Yeah. Vassar has a strong team of guys. Again, it's going to be school of the caliber of Vassar. You're going to be able to bring in a good amount of talent, a good amount of players. And they're going to be there now, 8-1 in that conference. That's a really impressive year last year. If they're able to repeat that again this year, I'm not totally sure. I'm not saying they're incapable of it, but it's a big ask. Big ask for anyone, even someone that's going to win the conference. It wouldn't shock me if we have a 2-loss conference champion in this conference. So I guess with the loss of their starting setter from last year, it's going to be an interesting battle, and there'll probably be some bumpy roads in the beginning of the season, at least figuring out exactly what the right lineup is and who's going to be setting and figuring out that situation. But again, if you have competition there, I know they have a bunch of bodies in practice, it's going to help them figure it all out because they have the talent around the rest of the team that'll be able to help figure out the situation. So once they figure out exactly who's running the show and get it all set up, I think they'll be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, there's gonna have to put in a lot of big shoes to fill there, not just with Zach, but with Matt Knigge graduating as well, All-American multiple times over. It's going to be tough filling not just the setting void, but just an offensive void where you're going to have to dish out to different locations now that, a lot of the times we're going to Matt in trouble. And that setter position is going to be tough too. You had the same setter there for, the last 4 years. And the guys who have been there, they're going to have to get used to whoever is going to be their new setter. And that might take some time. It might be until, February, March that they really start hitting their stride. So, I wouldn't be surprised if things might start, a little slow, but I wouldn't be surprised if they get it together earlier than that. They can definitely contend with anyone else.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked to see some pretty creative lineups here. I mean, with the talent level of Kevin Ross that can play many positions, I would not be shocked to see them doing things to have him playing multiple positions or anything along those lines until they figure out exactly what works for a team. But I could, again, game planning wise, wind up being an advantage if you're doing some stuff that's creative and different. It just makes it something different you got to practice. Like basketball wise, like Syracuse plays a zone defense that everybody hates, but it's harder to coach against because you don't practice it all the time. So if they want to run some interesting offense and different stuff, that could be a way to keep that record or keep up there in the top of the conference.
Yeah, they got some guys in this year that they could once they get developed as freshmen, they can definitely play a part in all of this. They definitely got outside possibility, got a lefty, a third lefty opposite. So that opposite position, they now have, I think, a junior, a sophomore, and a freshman. I think all lefties going for that position, and so they'll have plenty of competition within themselves. I mean,
oh, that's great. And I mean, so basically, that brings us to our last team. This team is probably, looking to make a mark on their conference right before they take off and head for the MAC next year. But they also were our NCAA finalists against Springfield. So again, you have a semifinalist and a finalist for the NCAA tournament in the same conference, finishing 1 and 2. We're talking about this is there's really no more argument about who the best conference is in the country with this. So I guess Eric, you want to talk a little bit about Stevens and how they're going to go into their last year in the UBC.
Yeah, they're basically the only team last year outside of Springfield, but that goes for a lot of teams that basically had our number. They beat us 3-0. Both times we played them. We lost at Stevens 3-0. We lost in the UBC finals 3-0. They got us pretty good, and they still have Lehman there. They lost Gabe, of course, but they still have plenty of guys that are gonna put some hurt on some people. They also lost Burrell, but they're still well coached, and they got plenty of guys that are still going to make a difference.
Yeah, Stevens is going to have clearly a good year again. I mean, they lost Shankweiler, they lost some players, but there's always going to be more talent coming into that school. Bicker, who played a good amount last year, I would say would step up and be right to maybe get into the all conference tournament conversation. I think he's going to be a really strong player for him this year and just kind of up his responsibilities. And something you can't forget about with a school like Stevens, I think Vassar and NYU probably fall in this category as well, or definitely an MIT, I guess. But just the caliber of person, like this, it's so hard to get acceptance to these colleges that you can't put it past these guys. That's been a tough road for them, and they know how to work. So it's going to I think these guys are going to improve on the Stevens teams that have been there for a bit. Like getting into Stevens is no small feat. So they definitely have their work. They know how to work, and they're going to keep improving themselves. But I think I would be shocked to see if they lost more than 2 matches in the conference. I'd be shocked this year. I think they're that talented and that good.
Well, that's great, and so it's very unfortunate a little bit for them to be moving conferences, but I'm sure it's a great fit for their school to be moving out into the MAC and getting all their teams under one umbrella. Now we're kind of going to go right now and look at some predictions from the two of you on predicted order of finish. Who's your surprise team going to be, and who's that dark horse to make the tournament that will give us something a little different. So Eric, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think start off with dark. You can call it dark horse if you want, but I think I see Fisher making it in the playoffs this year. I mean, they were 1-8 last year in conference, but I think they'll make it in this year. As far as the top there, I see NYU. If they can put all their stuff together with they're still young, but if they can get those guys the experience they need, I think they have everything of what it takes to win the UBC this year.
All right,
cool. So
Mike?
Yeah. So I'm going to go kind of the other way down. So I'm going to work my way through here. I'm going to pick put some teams together that I think are definitely going to make it. I work my way backwards to get to that number 6, the 6 teams, and figure out what we think is going to happen here. So I think the 3 teams on top that just talent-wise, I just think just have too many bodies. Even if a big player goes down, I think someone's going to be able to step up. Worst case scenario, I think Stevens, New Paltz, and NYU. I think those 3 teams have just enough bodies and enough talent that I'd be very shocked if those 3 teams were not in the playoffs come end of the year. So that's kind of the boring side of the conversation now. So that remains. So the teams that made it last year that were not mentioned already, that'd be Vassar, Elmira, and Nazareth. Do we think all three of those teams are going to make it again this year? When we have teams that didn't make it, like just below, we have MIT, we have Sage, we have St. John Fisher, and we have Bard. So I guess the conversation is, do we think that, I think right now of those teams that didn't make it, I would say MIT and St. John Fisher are two that have a good chance of making a jump and getting up in there. Right now, I would say of those, I would say St. John Fisher is going to get right on the edge this year. I think I wouldn't be shocked to make it in, but I would guess I'm going to say right now, I'm going to see MIT already having 4 wins last year, being able to sneak up and grab a spot away from one other team. So I would say MIT is going to make it, so they're going to be the 4th team I'm putting in. That means someone from last year has to drop out. So that leaves us with one of these 3 teams can't make it: Vassar, Elmira, or Nazareth. And kind of the way things are going, I guess I'm going to look at this, and my prediction is going to be big here. I think Vassar may drop out of this whole thing. Just losing a lot and just a little bit, even just a few growing pains along the way, even if they may be a top 6 team by the end of the year, it may take a little bit too long to figure out all those things. But I think that would be my prediction. So I'd say Stevens, New Paltz. I'd say in order, top to bottom. First, I'd say Stevens is probably going to line up first, then NYU, then New Paltz. I'm going to put Elmira, Naz, and MIT as my 6.
Yeah, I think I gave you a dark horse earlier, but I do think it will be tough. I think Fisher can get into that 6, but I also think MIT is going to improve as well. It's going to be, I think that the last spot's going to be contended. I agree with basically those same teams with Vassar, Elmira, and Naz. So yeah, I think it'll be tight over there. I do have, I think, NYU, Stevens, New Paltz as my early top 3 though.
All right, great. So with the history of the UBC and the NCAA tournament, the question is with a slightly expanded tournament this year with a lot more teams in, how many bids does the UBC see? And who is it?
I
so
think
I'll look at it.
Sorry, go ahead.
So I'll look at it and say, I would say it's still probably going to be 2. I don't see us getting. I don't see the UVC getting 3 teams in. It's a tough sell to get 3 teams into a postseason tournament where there aren't that many at-large bids to go around. So I would say it's the 2 finalist teams. You got to make the finals if you wanna get in.
Yeah, I agree. There's too many good teams now. I mean, we got a at-large bid last year, and there were a couple of teams that that were definitely in that conversation to get that bid. With so much more talent coming out of the Midwest area, and teams like Southern Virginia coming out of nowhere last year. There's just a lot of talent, so it's very difficult for them to be getting more than 2 if they do get 2.
Yeah, historically, this has been kind of the we're comparing it to college football, the SEC of Division III men's volleyball. And no matter how strong the conference is, it's hard to get 3 teams into a playoff system. I mean, last year New Paltz finished with a 5th in the coaches poll and didn't make the tournament. It's kind of the reality of the situation. So definitely, if you want to make the NCAA tournament, you definitely need to at least make the finals.
Okay, well, that does it for our rundown of the UBC for this week. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about? Any outstanding outlying things?
If anyone that's listening has any big matches that you'd recommend us covering, that you think would be really, I'm guessing most of the people that are listening to this have some sort of tie to D3 men's volleyball currently, either the players or you're an alumni. So if you have any big matches you think you'd like covered, let us know. We'll figure out contact somehow. I guess we'll probably put information out. We don't have an email yet, so I guess we'll figure all that out eventually. But yeah, think about those kind of things, and we'll look forward to trying to get out into the field and seeing some of the teams actually being at some of these matches.
Yeah, just email Vinny.
Yeah, let's put more on Vinny's lap.
All right.
Yeah.
So I guess I can bring us. I'll take us out.
Yeah. Sure.
Sure. We're figuring this out. Bear with us, people. Yeah. So this has been.
All this too.
Oh, okay. That's true. Editing and computers are a great thing. Yeah, well, this has been the Triple Block podcast. We appreciate you guys taking the time to listen. We're brought to you by Off the Block blog. Yeah, please subscribe or download again.
All right. So, Mike, you going to turn yours off?
Yeah, I'm going to stop right now.